Ahoy there, mateys! Hello, friends. Greetings from the seven seas. Captain Adam here, and welcome aboard the VHS pirate ship. And welcome to Reek of the Week, a little segment here on the VHS pirate ship where I take a look at different aspects of 80s and 90s nostalgia. That's right, it's the show that has the sweet stench of childhood memories and reeks of nostalgia. It's Reek of the Week! And on this installment of Reek of the Week, I'm going to be taking a look at some movies that got cartoon show adaptations. Now, the cartoon show is the perfect way to market anything to children, including movies. Now, as I've talked about before in previous videos, there is a slew of movies that got cartoons that probably should not have, as these certain movies are not for kids, like RoboCop, Rambo, and Toxic Avenger. I'm not sure what's harder to believe, the fact that they made a cartoon show based on Toxic Avenger, or that someone thought it was a good idea. And keep in mind that not just one person had to think this was a good idea, but multiple people had to have thought this was a good idea. Because, I mean, this would have had to gone through a production team, and not to mention the television censors, so this went through a lot of people before it made it to television. So you might be asking yourself, why is it so hard to believe there was a cartoon show based on the Toxic Avenger? Matter of fact, why is it so hard to believe that any of these movies were made into cartoon shows? Well, basically, for a movie to become a cartoon show, the movie itself has to be at least somewhat kid-friendly. More so than not. Or at least you would think so. And so let's say little Timmy watches the Toxic Avenger, or as the cartoon was called, the Toxic Crusaders. He likes it, he's a fan, he watches all the time, and eventually he's going to want to know where this cartoon comes from. And eventually, come hell or high water, he's going to watch the Toxic Avenger at an early age where he really should not be watching this movie. Now, it's true that when I first saw the Toxic Avenger, I was probably 10 years old. And this is because of the USA Network's Up All Night, which was a movie showcase that usually highlighted horror movies or B-movies, especially trauma films. This was hosted by Rhonda Shear, or sometimes Gilbert Gottfried. It premiered in 1989 and ran all the way to 1998 until it was canceled. It came on Saturday nights at a very late time slot. The movies they played were censored, but not that much. So the version of the Toxic Avenger that I watched was pretty much the full movie, with a few things cut out. And I'm quite certain that was only because of time restraints. There wasn't that much censored. And when I watched it, I sort of had the feeling that I should not be. And even as a kid, when I saw that they made a cartoon show about this movie, I thought it was a bit odd. The Toxic Crusaders premiered March 1st, 1991, and ran all the way until May of 1991. Yep, didn't last long. One season. 13 episodes. But that did not stop them from trying to push the hell out of this. Yeah, there were action figures, a video game, there was even a coloring book, and eventually they compiled all the episodes together and released Toxic Crusaders the movie in 1997. And then, of course, there's Police Academy, the cartoon show, which I had talked about already in a previous video. Now, Police Academy having a cartoon show is weird. Basically just because of the first movie, which has a lot of content that just is not suitable for kids. But the other movies are nowhere near as lewd and lascivious, so really it's only kind of weird that Police Academy got a cartoon show. Okay, so let's move on to some cartoon shows that are based on movies that are a little bit more expected. How about Teenwolf, which premiered on CBS September 13th, 1986, and lasted until November 7th, 1987. Okay, so maybe Teenwolf really isn't all that expected, since many people forget that this was a cartoon. And this, of course, is based on the movie Teen Wolf, which was released in theaters August 23rd, 1985. It was made for a budget of $1 million and took in $80 million at the box office.
$80 million at the box office. $80 million at the box office. $80 million at the box office.
So yeah, this was a hit, and it really is no wonder that they made a cartoon show about it. And it's a family-friendly movie, so really, it's a perfect candidate for a cartoon adaptation. Let's talk about Teen Wolf for a second. A lot of people consider it an important 80s movie, but if you watch it recently, it really doesn't hold up all that well. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot to it, and actually, it's more of a basketball movie than it is a werewolf movie. So let's move on to the cartoon show based on a movie that is probably the most popular one, and certainly most expected, and that's the Ghostbusters. And I think it's safe to say that this is when most of us first learned of copyright laws and loopholes and licensing legality. And as you know, this show is actually called The Real Ghostbusters. But for time constraints and for the fact that I'm going to be covering this in a future video, I'm not really going to get into it now. The Ghostbusters, or rather the Real Ghostbusters, premiered on ABC September 13th, 1986, and ran all the way up until October 5th of 1991, and this would continue to exist in syndication for years to come. This cartoon was a powerhouse. There were toys, action figures, merchandising galore. And in 1997, there was even a spin-off cartoon called The Extreme Ghostbusters, but it didn't last very long. So how about we go back to another Michael J. Fox powerhouse and talk about Back to the Future, the cartoon show, which first aired on CBS September 14th, 1991, and ran until December 26th, 1992. And this cartoon is obviously based on the Back to the Future trilogy, and this was a pretty big deal when it first aired, because really, it's the only continuation of the story beyond Back to the Future Part 3, so we have to assume it's canon. And also, the voice acting is pretty supreme. We have Thomas F. Wilson reprising his role as Biff, and Mary Steenburgen reprising her role as Clara. And Christopher Lloyd would even reprise his role as Doc Brown in these little live-action segments that were introductions to the episodes, and all throughout the cartoon, he would do these little Mr. Wizard-style experiments, and he would even partially narrate some of the episodes. So, to watch this nowadays, you can certainly tell this was a early 90s cartoon, but to me, I feel it's a little underrated. And back then, this show was not a marketing bonanza, as there were no toys for it, but there were Happy Meal premiums. But let's move on to Beetlejuice, the animated series, which first aired September 9th, 1989, and ran until December 6th, 1991, and would continue to air in syndication for a few years afterwards. And this show was immensely entertaining. It was delightful and whimsical, and Beetlejuice is nowhere near as sinister as he was in the movie. In fact, he's pretty much a babyface, as he and Lydia Dietz go on adventures together. And this show doesn't really follow the movie very well. It kind of just makes its own path. And I'm fine with that because it's a pretty entertaining show. And then there's the Karate Kid animated series that pretty much everybody forgot about. Yeah, this was a thing. It premiered on NBC September 9th, 1989, and lasted until December of the same year. And as far as I know, did not have an afterlife in syndication.
So is this what the Karate Kid action figures are based on?
Nope, that action figure line came out in 86. This cartoon premiered in 89. As far as I know, this had no merchandise and is pretty forgotten about. And then there was stuff like the King Kong Show from 1966, and the Godzilla cartoon show from 1978. And there's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, which I totally had forgotten about, which had premiered on CBS September 15th, 1990, and ran until November 16th, 1991. And of course, this is based on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which was released in theaters February 17th, 1989. And as you may know, this movie was a tremendous hit. It was made on a budget of $6 million and took in $40 million at the box office. Now, that's nowhere near Teenwolf money, but this is still pretty damn good. And then they made cartoon shows about things that were already TV shows, like Star Trek and Dukes of Hazzard. Wow, this TV show is so popular, we should make another TV show about it. So, we've talked about some movies that got cartoon show adaptations, and movies that should not have gotten cartoon show adaptations, but what about some movies that probably should have? Like, why wasn't there a Gremlins cartoon show? And what about a Short Circuit cartoon? They could have just called it Johnny Five. I mean, that would have been pretty cool. And also, I know they had Hey Vern, It's Ernest, which was a live-action sketch comedy show geared towards kids, but why didn't they have a cartoon about Ernest? I mean, they could have had one that was based on Ernest Goes to Camp. You know, it could be about the further adventures of Camp Kikiki. I think that would have been pretty neat. And why wasn't there a UHF cartoon? I mean, come on, that movie was filled with characters. They all would have looked great in a cartoon. And why not a Monster Squad cartoon? I mean, based on the popularity of Ghostbusters, that would have been great. And I will always be surprised that they didn't make an E.T. cartoon. How about a Caddyshack cartoon? I mean, come on, if you're gonna make a cartoon about Police Academy, then a Caddyshack cartoon doesn't seem too far out. And plus, it would have been the only cartoon about golf, so there's that. Well, anyways, those are just my opinions. So, I hope you enjoyed today's Reek of the Week! And before I say goodbye today, a quick shout out to Mitch McKinnis, a fan of the show who correctly guessed the movie reference in last week's Reek of the Week. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you for watching, and thank all of you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. So take care out there, and be sure to give a like. And I'll see you next time, only on Captain Adam's VHS pirate ship.